Doing good, doing good. I'm actually just editing my third video
Nice, very nice, very
today.
nice.
I have got some ideas to implement,
Yep,
but
that
we will
sounds
see.
sounds great, man.
Yeah,
Sounds
man.
great. Perfect. All
Thank
right. Um, maybe we are going to talk about this after I just explained what I did,
you.
what
Sure.
I'm going to do today. But then my recording has stopped. Oh, why?
It says live.
Huh? Can you see my screen though?
I can see your screen and I can hear you well and I can see you as well.
Huh? Okay, wait. But what's going on then? All right, maybe I have to rejoin. Wait. All right. So here we go again. Entries off. All right. So then I'm just going to make my quick tutorial kind of stuff.
Awesome. I can see your screen.
Perfect. All right, guys. Hello and welcome back to the next DaVinci Resolve Fusion call. Today we're going to learn how to do this really cool documentary title reveal, and I think it's really cool with the camera motion and the smoothness and the 3D money pots or 3D money assets. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to show you how to do it. It's actually not that difficult, and especially if you have seen the other videos, then this will be very helpful. All right. So, um, yeah, as you can see, there are a lot of notes, but don't worry about them. It's actually very easy. Um, yes, so let's just start right at the beginning. Um, First of all, we have our basic 3D notes. I think I've explained it now like 10 times in 10 different calls. But anyways, this is a step-by-step guide, so I'm going to explain it really quick as well. We have a renderer 3D, which is basically rendering our 2D data because we can't just put 2D into 3D space and image resolve. Then we have our image plane 3Ds, which are displaying the 2D data in 3D space. Then we have our merge 3D, where we are connecting all of our image plane 3Ds together. And then we have the camera, which is connected to the merge 3D to actually have this cool camera movement. And that's basically what those nodes are for. The transform 3D one is just the camera movement, and it's just there to move the camera 3D around more easily. All right, so then we're going to start right at the beginning, and the first thing that you need is a background, and in the best case, a high resolution background. What I did was basically just going to Envato Elements, and I was searching for paper backgrounds. I love this website, but if you don't have access to it for any reason, you can just go to a website like Pixabay or Pexels. I can just pull it up real quick so that you know. So we have Pixabay. You can get a lot of assets here. Maybe if we type in paper, maybe we can find something here. Um, if we scroll down, I think you might be able to find some stuff. Maybe here, or here. This is very good. Or you could also go to a website called Pexels, which is basically another non-copyright website where you can just download stuff. So here you can type in paper as well, and then you can find textures and stuff. So yes, that's the first part because we need our assets. You can just go to Google as well if it's for your personal use. So, first thing I did then was just adding my image plane 3D and my paper, and then so I'm just going to do this real quick, right? And then I was just adding a little vignette. This is just because if you don't add the vignette, it just looks very flat, and yeah, I want the focus to be more centered in the middle, and in this case we have also something like cool highlights with the lights, which I really like. All right, Next thing I did then was adding another image plane 3D with my first money, um, money. How is it called? Dollar bill. With my first dollar bill, because as you can see, we have those $2 bills right here, which are basically flying and bending in. If you look at the 3D space here, they are moving up and also bending themselves a little bit. So first of all, we obviously need the asset, which is the Media 4, and in my case, I just pulled up a picture. I found this on Envato Elements as well. It's very high quality, so very nice. And then I just took a polygon mask, connected it to the Media 4, and cut out the dollar bill. That was, yeah, that was the easiest part to get the asset in my case. Next thing I did then, because as you can see right now, has still a lot of color, and it would maybe distract from our main subject, which is the money, or the money is power sign. And if we have title animations, we always want to have our focus on the title. Yeah, since this is what everything is about. So what I did was basically just adding a color corrector. You can just click on the media in 4, type in shift spacebar, and then type in a color corrector, hit add, then it will be added to your timeline. And then what I did was just click on the color corrector, go to inspector, and I was going down to the saturation and dragged it down all the way. And that's how I got this, yeah, white and black effect. Alright, next thing I did then was adding a little bit of Gaussian blur, because as you can see, this looks very harsh. And I wanted to be a little bit out of focus, so the money is power sign is even more in the focus. So that was the next thing I was adding. And lastly, I was adding a drop shadow, because as you can see, without the drop shadow, it kind of looks a little bit flat and like it's stuck to the background, which we don't want. We want to have it feel like it's in 3D space. And that's why I added this drop shadow to it, which I think looks really cool. You can play around with the values a little bit. In this case, I always recommend to just lower the drop distance, and maybe increase the blur a little bit. And yeah, the next thing I did then was adding a Bender 3D. Just keep in mind, this is a free node, so you have to edit after your image plane 3D. And then I went into the beginning, or basically you can just adjust all of these settings to make them bend around and make it look like it's a little bit more, it has a little bit more of this paper texture which is moving around if you move it. So that's what I wanted to achieve. So I set a keyframe at about 43 and in the beginning at the amount, and then I was just increasing and decreasing the amount from the start to the beginning to have a little bit of this bending kind of effect. I think I've done it more on the upper bottom. So yeah. Alright. Next thing I did then was basically just copy pasting all of that and then I was connecting it to my Merge 3D one as well. And then I basically just flipped it on the ZX on the image plane 3D. When you go in the inspector, you can just type in minus 360 degrees, and then I used it as my second money dollar bill. And I also played around a little bit differently with the amount settings from the Bender and with all of the different things that you can change here. And something that I forgot to explain is that I keyframed and animated the downwards movement and upwards movement from the dollar bill. So this animation happened right on the image plane 3D1. So if we can just click on the spline button or on the spline tool button on the top right hand corner, and then we can take our image plane 3D1 and just drag and drop it into our viewport. And then if we click on this button, we have it in full size. And what I always would recommend you to do is, so what I first did was just going to around frame 55, going back to frame 0 or frame 56, and then I just adjusted the y-axis so that it's moving into the frame, and then you can just click on the keyframe and hit S, and then I would recommend you to drag it out a lot, because a lot of people are just if you hit S, it looks like this, but you want to drag it out a lot because you want to have it really smooth. In the beginning, you're probably not noticing if something is looking off or isn't looking perfect, but I would recommend you to make really long animations and to drag out those handles a lot, because this will look a lot more professional and a lot more smooth. And I did basically the same thing for the image plane 3D, for this image plane 3D, for the second dollar bill, and yeah, just adjusting one from the second one is going upwards to the downside, and the other way around for the other dollar bill. All right. Next thing I did then was adding the actual text. This was very easy. So I just added another image plane 3D, moved it in front of the paper background, so that it looks correctly. And what I did then was just adding a background to our image plane, because we always, or if we are going to use little sub node trees, we need a main timeline or a main node tree. Oh, I think someone wrote in the chat. Alex, hey, can you just turn up the volume a little bit? All right. I'm sorry. This was 4 minutes ago. I'm trying to do it now. Little question: is it better like this, or I can just maybe? Right now, yes. All right, that's good. Then I'm just going to talk like this. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Next thing I did then was animating this text. So what I did was basically just adding this background to the image plane, because if we want to add subnode trees, we always need something like a media in. We can't just work without a media in. And in this case, I just use the background one as a media in. And if you go into the inspector, you can see that I put the alpha to 0 to make the layer look see-through. All right, next thing I did then was adding this money is power. So what I did was basically just adding a text with a drop shadow. And if you are adding text, by the way, this is a text plus, keep that in mind. And then just edit it to the background. You can do this by hitting Shift and Spacebar, type in text, and then click on text plus, hit add. And then you can click on the text, go into the inspector, go into the text tab, and then you can just type in whatever text that is in your mind. So in my case, my slogan right here is money is power, and the font is symbol, and I think it looks really cool with this Y, and it's like giving this documentary-ish feeling. And what I did then was animating this wipe kind of effect. So what I did was basically just adding a rectangle, which I connected to my text one. And then I can show that real quick. So I made a huge rectangle and I cranked up the soft edge a lot. And then I went in the beginning of the video, or in the start of the video, and keyframed the center X and Y axis. So I just made a keyframe here. And then at frame 49, I hit the next keyframe and dragged it out so that you are able to see everything, and then you get this kind of animation. Really make sure that you are cranking up the soft edge, because otherwise it won't look that good. But I think in this case it's really nice. And then next thing I did was adding another text one. So you can do it exactly the same, just hit Shift Spacebar, type in text plus, and then you can connect this little rectangle to your merge, and then another merge node will automatically be created. Then I added another transform. Oh no, first I typed in the text, which is power First one was money, now it's is power. Then I just selected a font which is maybe looking a little bit like it got just scribbled down, which is in this case Sigio script, and I've set the color to an orange-ish, because I thought it would be really cool to have like one highlight in this whole composition, and in this case it's the is power sign, or is power text. All right. Next thing I did then was adding a transform one node by clicking on the transform or on the text one, hitting shift spacebar, type in text, text plus. Then this will be added to our timeline. And what I did then was going to around frame 9. I clicked on syntax and Y, keyframed it, went around 51 frames forward, keyframed it again, and then what I keyframed was basically just the y-axis, which I moved downwards to upwards, so that this is like moving upwards a little bit. What I did then was going to the transform, and you can just drag and drop it into your spline tab. So if you haven't or can't see your spline tab, remember, go just on the top and click on the spline tab. And what I did then was just pressing S again on my keyboard when selecting a keyframe, and then I dragged it out a lot so that it looks really smooth. And lastly, I was basically just going to the start of the video or to the start of the animation. Then I went to the merge node, and then I keyframed the blend mode, which is on 1 usually if you've just created your merge node, but I cranked it down to 0. Then I went a couple frames forward to crank it up to 1, so that it's like appearing slowly, and that it has this really cool kind of vibe. All right, next thing I did then was adding those little strokes. By the way, all right, no, was adding those strokes just to give it a little bit more highlights and depth. And I think, I don't know why, but it looks really cool. For that, I just went onto Google and typed in dashed or tapered line, and I've downloaded one of the first assets that I found, one of the first PNGs. So in this case, it was this greenish lines kind of things. So what I did basically was just adding another image plane 3D, then adding a background to have another timeline. Then I clicked on the background too and decreased the alpha to 0 again, and added another added then my asset to the main timeline. You can just click on the rectangle connected to your background, then this merge node will be created. And what I did then was clicking shift spacebar and typed in color corrector, because as you can see, this line is green, and green would look really ugly in this case. So what I basically did was just going on the color corrector, go to saturation again, set it up to 0 so that yeah, it's gray. And lastly but not least, I was adding, because as you can see, those are all of the assets, I was adding a rectangle mask to just mask out the part that I wanted. And what I did then was basically just clicking on my image plane 3D, going around 62 frames forward, keyframe the y-axis to the point where I wanted it to be in the end, and then in the beginning I set another keyframe, which so that this is like moving upwards. And what I was doing then, you can just take your image plane 3D, drag it into your spline tab again, then you can click on this icon to make it big, and then I just adjusted this curve again by hitting S and then dragging out this curve a lot so that it looks very smooth. And then I was just duplicating this to have the second lines. Only thing I did here was moving around the mask. So in the beginning you can see this is the one side or the one part of the assets. Now I wanted the bigger lines, so I keyframed the other lines out, and I've added a color corrector again, but basically I just copy pasted it so it was already there. And then I clicked on the next image plane 3D, and what I did was just moving around the assets and keyframing my y-axis again, and I was making sure that it looks really really smooth. So yeah, that is just nice. And basically that was it. So this is how I created this animation. Maybe we can add a little bit of spice, so we can go back into our edit tab, then we can add an adjustment clip, and then we can play around a little bit with a couple of settings. So first of all, we can maybe add a halation, which is always a cool effect, especially in this case. I think it looks dope. So it gives a little bit of those cool outlines. Yeah, maybe like this. It's looking cool. Um, and then we're going to add maybe a little bit of grain to our footage. Oh no. Film damage, film grain. Maybe a little bit of film grain. So what I like to do is this 35 400T. Can crank up the texture a little bit. And grain size. So that it has a little bit more depth. Um, you're probably not going to be able to see it right now. Oh, whoa! Can you see my screen recording? Because for me it's stuck, I think. Oh no. All right. You can see everything. All right. Unfortunately, no. To which point were you able to see everything? Now, yes, yeah, but to which point were you able to see what I did? Yeah, no problem, man.
He's at work. I appreciate that.
But like, could you understand? I think it was to the point where I switched to the edit tab, right? All right, doesn't matter now. I'm just going to continue from this point. So what I was doing was basic. Yes, when you said.
Yeah, when you said that you
All right.
switched, that tab was just white.
All right, easy. Then no problem because I was not doing much. So what I was doing now was basically just adding inhalation effect, and played around a little bit with the settings, and then was also adding a film grain to, yeah, give it a little bit more of this grainy look. What you can do right now, and what I think is really really cool, or what is it, color grading? Uh, I have to find this effect because it's really really cool. You just gotta give me 1 second. Film look creator, because now we can. Sometimes you find some presets which are looking cool. So this would be like a little bit like Joker. I don't like a lot of these. Yeah, in this case, maybe that's not the way to go. But I think it's alright. So I'm going to lower the strength a little bit. And then lastly, what we can do is add maybe another vignette. This is very, very harsh. Just have to find out if it's cool. Like this. It's looking dope. And yeah, I think that's all of it. If you've just followed all of these steps, I think you are now able to do this kind of title animation. I think it looks really really cool. You can send me your results or ask questions by just messaging me on the school. And yeah, I'm glad to see you in the next call. Goodbye. All right, we did it. That's great. Can I find
Can
this
I
live to
find this
rewatch?
slide? Yes, yes, yes. You will find it in the classroom section. If you go to the classroom section, there is a tab called called recordings. If you go to the recordings tab, click on it, you will find the creators calls, After Effects, DaVinci, everything.
Yeah. All right, perfect. I hope that I could help you out. If you have any questions, you can type it in chat text. If you have any questions, you can just type it in chat right now. But I think You're probably at work. You're great, Nick. I will rewatch it. Okay, perfectly. Thank you so much, man. I wish you a great work day. uh,
I wish you the same as well, brother. Alex, enjoy, man. Appreciate what you're doing.
Take care. Take care. Perfect.
Take care, brother.
All right. Goodbye.